In this video, I'm going to give an in-depth preview of all October 2025 BTO projects. But before we go into the details, let me share with you my personal choices first. So October BTO lineup is interesting because there are quite a lot of mature towns being offered, but most of them unfortunately have a catch for some reason. For example, the Mount Pleasant BTO at Payoh is nice, but it's next to two graveyards. The keppel BTO is nice, but it's located at the back of the plot, so your sea view might eventually be blocked in the future depending on your block. Ang Mo Kio BTO should be very popular because it's in a mature town, but unfortunately this particular site is very far from the MRT station. Another one is, the Jurong East BTO is only 2 MRT stops away from GEM and has an unblocked view to the reservoir. But then some said that the Pandan Reservoir area has that weird chemical smell because there are a lot of industrial sites nearby. Not sure whether that's true or not, and so forth and so on. So at a glance, it looks like a great lineup, but if you double click, there are some drawbacks. But I mean, that's life, right? Nothing is perfect unless you want to pay a premium price. If you ask me, which one do I like the most? Well, hypothetically, if I'm applying for a forum flat BTO this October as a first-timer family and I have a good budget, I would go for either Bishan Town for Bishan BTO or Tua Payoh Town for Mount Pleasant BTO. I will just wait until the last day of the application so that I can see which one has the lower application rate and just go for that. This is because a lower application rate means there is less competition for that particular town. Why are these my personal top options? Well, Bishan BTO ticks most of the important criteria such as located in a mature town with a lot of amenities, a lot of school options, somewhat within walking distance to the MRT station, although it's like 650 meters, so it's a little bit far. But overall, at least there's no graveyard or future construction noises in the area to worry about. Why Mount Pleasant BTO is my second option? Well, I know that it is near a couple of graveyards, and I do understand it's a concern for some people because it's a taboo and some are also worried about the future resale potential. But for me personally, I don't mind. Looking at how Bidadari, Ang Mo Kio, and Bishan now have multiple $1 million resale HDB, this to me indicates that there are still a lot of potential buyers out there that are, let's just say open-minded. And the fact that there are some BTO applicants who would not apply to Mount Pleasant because of the graveyard, for me, that's actually a good thing because it means less competition. Although indeed, with Mount Pleasant, you would have to deal with construction noises for several years as the area is still being developed. But the on-site facilities are quite good. For example, it has its own supermarket, and then it's also within walking distance to the MRT station, and you can just go to nearby spots for amenities. But, spoiler alert, most likely Bishan will have a higher application rate versus Mount Pleasant just because the number of units in Bishan is far less. So it looks like, hypothetically, if I'm applying for a BTO this October, I will end up applying for Mount Pleasant BTO. What about budget options for a forum flat? Among the October projects that are classified as standard, which ones is my favorite? Personally, I would go for Sengkang. Why? Well, Yishun has two projects this October, so if you apply for Yishun Town, you could either end up with Chencharu BTO, which is relatively close to Khatib MRT station and future integrated development, or you could end up with Yishun Ring Road BTO that is like 1.5 kilometers away from Yishun MRT station. While I'm personally tempted to go for Jurong East BTO because it will be near an MRT station after the BTO is completed, and it's 2 stops only from Jurong East station, and many flats will have an unblocked view of the Pandan Reservoir. But I was warned by so many of you in the comment section that the industrial sites nearby the area exude these chemical smells, which doesn't sound healthy in the long run. I don't know whether that's true or not, or whether the smell is persistent or only occasionally, depending on the wind or something, I don't know. So Sengkang to me seems to be the logical option among all the standard BTO this October. Of course, it does mean that you will need to factor in extra time to go to the city center, especially if you work in the CBD area. You will also need to be patient because you'll need to ride the LRT. But to me, Sengkang is not bad if I'm only expecting a simple lifestyle. You have a park nearby, amenities around the area, there are many school options. So if I'm on a budget, I would personally aim for Sengkang and just pick a block that is not facing the expressway. That's it. But if I don't have any kids or I only have like one child and I want to apply for a 3-room flat, you might be surprised, but I might apply for keppel BTO. Why? Statistically, typically there's less competition for a 3-room BTO for prime projects. But from the resale statistics, 3-room percentage-wise can actually be more profitable than a 4-room flat. Besides, even though there are 2 BTOs in Bukit Merah for October, applying for a 3-room means that my application is specifically targeted for keppel BTO because the other BTO in Bukit Merah Red Hill Close does not have any 3-room option. I mean, yes, keppel is not perfect. It's located at the back of the lot, which means there's a good chance my view will eventually be blocked in the future, and there's not much school option for my child. But that's why I said that I will only consider keppel BTO if I don't have a child or maybe like maximum one child. What if I'm a single applicant? Which project will I go for? Honestly, if I'm single and want to apply for a BTO, I would really pay close attention on which project will give me the best chance. If you look at the statistics, singles application rate is always very high and even reaches double digits in some cases. If we calculate how many 2-room flexi allocated for singles, we ended up with this table. I did a more in-depth video about this, so check out the link in the description down below to watch that video that I made, which was dedicated to only talking about 2-room flexi. But as you can see, some towns have more allocation for singles than others. Purely based on these numbers, I would either go for Bukit Merah because in total there are 285 2-room flexi allocated for singles if we total up Keppel and Red Hill Close BTO. Or the next alternative is Mount Pleasant because it has 211 2-room flexi for singles. But if you are not picky on location and distance to MRT and you just want to get a roof on top of your head, my suggestion is just to wait until the very last day of the sales period and apply for a 2-room flexi in the area that has the lowest application rate. That would give you the best chance. How to know the application rate for each day? Well, we have it as well on this channel, so do subscribe because it seems like I'm the only content creator that is crazy enough to make this much content about BTO. And with that, let's deep dive into detailed preview of each project. Let's talk about the Mount Pleasant BTO at Payoh. This is the first out of 6 BTO projects planned to transform the 33 hectares of Mount Pleasant area into a new public housing precinct. This particular project will be built on the former police academy site and will have more than 1,000 2-room flexi, 3-room, and also 4-room flats. On the site, there will be a preschool, an eating house, a supermarket, several shops, and also a residence network center. Considering how HDB and the government announced about this Mount Pleasant BTO even before the July BTO was released, that means they are very proud of this project. So I am guessing that this will be a prime project. I think the open question would be about how much is the subsidy recovery percentage. Another key selling point is that the project is close to several popular school options such as Raffles Girls School, Raffles Institution, CHIJ Primary and Secondary Schools, and also SGI International. I guess the wild card about this project is because this BTO is located relatively near to 2 cemeteries, and according to the polling that I created on this channel, it seems like it's a bigger problem than I thought. I know that the polling is very small and it's not substantial enough in terms of volumetric to really justify, but at least from this very small subset of population, initially I thought maybe less than 20% will be bothered by the fact that there's a cemetery nearby, but apparently almost half of you said that you would rather apply elsewhere, so that's significant. FYI that 2 of its blocks will be integrated with public rental flats and 1 block will have rental units only. Anyway, now let's talk about the location. Okay, so this is the map that HDB gave, and if we go to Google Map, I think this is the corresponding location. So it's about this part. So the famous cemetery that people kept mentioning is actually not exactly nearby. So it's around here. Yeah, it's not that close. The nearest MRT station is Mount Pleasant MRT station, which is about 300 meters, so definitely within walking distance. In terms of potential unblocked view, based on the map, I think if your floor level is high enough, you can get some unblocked view because you see here, these are just greeneries, but then at the same time, it's cemetery as well. So it's this one and also this one are cemeteries, but then, I don't think the tombstone would be that obvious if you're high enough. I mean, that's just my personal opinion. Now, if you want more amenities as the area is still developing, you can easily go to Toa Payoh, which is this part, or you go to Balestier, which is this part. So it is quite near to amenities. Regarding expressway, we do have expressway right over here, but it's not directly side by side with the project itself. There is a couple of blocks distance, so hopefully that would reduce the potential noise that you might get. If you like outdoor activity, Makrichi Reservoir Park is just maybe a short bus ride away. So I think it's going to be convenient if you like jogging, or maybe a light hiking. In terms of healthcare facilities, Thomson Medical Center is over here, so that would be convenient if you are expecting a baby. And then on the other hand, Mount Alvernia Hospital is over here as well, so it's relatively quite close in my opinion, although not within walking distance obviously. What about school options? As you can see on the map, there are some options. The nearest school would be CHIJ Primary and also Secondary School, and then you also have Marymount Convent School, Raffles Girls School, etc. So there are some schooling options surrounding the area. For those of you who are a little bit nervous about the proximity to cemeteries, if you see on the map that HDB gave, actually this portion on the left is allocated to proposed health and medical care. If we see the Google map, so the BTO would be somewhere around here, right? And then, and the cemetery is here and then here. So what will be closer to the cemetery is actually the healthcare facility. Hopefully that is comforting for some of you who still feels unsettled with the proximity to several cemeteries. Okay, so what do I like about the project? I like that you can walk to the nearest MRT station, so that's good. And then in terms of on-site facilities, this is quite complete because you would have even supermarket, you would have several shops, an eating house, etc. So that's good. And remember that this project is located in Toa Payoh town, so there are a lot of amenities nearby. For singles and seniors, I also appreciate that this project will have quite a lot of two-room flexi supply, so that's good. And for families, I think it will be a good selling point that you are going to be close to several popular schools as we have discussed. Even though the cemetery factor might play into it, but I do still believe that in the long run, this project still has a very high resale and rental value potential. Okay, on the other hand, what don't I like about this project? I think the fact that this project is sort of nearby two cemeteries, it will have an impact at least to some potential buyers in the future. I know that some people argue that even like Bidadari, Ang Mo Kio used to be a graveyard as well, but I think the difference with Mount Pleasant BTO is that you can still see the graveyard, so you can still see it, and I think that's part of the challenge with this project, but personally it would not be a showstopper for me. And then of course, given that the area is still being transformed, you should expect to experience construction dust and noise from the surrounding developments, at least probably 5 to 10 years down the line, maybe, hopefully not as long as that. Another thing about this project is that the entry price is on the higher side because of the high comparable surrounding the area, so that kind of sucks, but that's the reality. And then the restrictions will be quite strict, but then that is what you can expect nowadays with Plus and Prime project. It is the reality. But in summary, for me personally, this project is still very good. It ticks a lot of boxes like distance to MRT station, schooling options, on-site facilities, mature amenities, etc. This project is quite solid. I think the watch out would be just the proximity to cemeteries. If you want to look at it from a positive angle, the application rate for this project probably would not be as high compared to if there are no cemeteries nearby. So if you don't mind with the fact that it's near some graveyards, I think you should consider this project very strongly. All in all, this particular project is one of my favorite. Let's talk about Bishan BTO. This is a very exciting project because it's located in a mature town and also near the north-south MRT line, which means an easy commute for those working in the CBD area. This project will offer 530 units of 2-room flexi, 3-room, and also 4-room flats. So the project is kind of on the smaller side based on the unit numbers. In terms of facilities, it will have a preschool and also a kidney dialysis center. According to the internet, the last time a BTO was launched in Bishan town, it was back in 2020. So the demand for the area must have been bottled up for some time. The location is near good schools, which has proven to be a very important factor for Singaporeans. Besides, there's not much open space in Bishan anymore, at least near MRT station. So we don't know when will there be another BTO around here. To make it worse, this project, as I said, is kind of small because it only has around 530 units. So I believe this BTO would be very competitive and definitely oversubscribed. The question is just how bad would it be? In terms of classification, without a doubt, this will get slapped by a 10-year MOP given its convenient location. The only question is whether it will be a plus or a prime. But given how Toa Payoh Ascent was classified as a prime project in the July BTO launch, I'm guessing this Bishan BTO will be classified as prime as well. Now let's talk about the location. Okay, so this is the map that HDB gave. If we look at the Google map, I think the comparable area is actually this one. Currently, there is this low-rise building over here. Probably it will get torn down or something. If you are wondering where is the nearest MRT station, so it's here. So according to Google map, it's about 650 meters. So you just walk several blocks. I think it's still doable, but it's up to you. Probably some people would be more comfortable to take a short bus ride. That's also possible. In terms of view, I think it's difficult because the plot is surrounded by high-rise building, other residential buildings. So I think the only chance that you would get is if you have a flat that is facing this football field. Probably that's it, because other section you see this is high-rise building. This is also another HDB complex. So indeed, this is not a place where you apply if you want to get like scenic view. Definitely there's no ocean view or things like that around here. In terms of amenities, as mentioned, Junction 8 Mall is just over here, and then around that area there are quite a lot of shops, so it should be very convenient, like if you want to go to the clinic or to the dentist. So as you can see, Bishan Public Library is here, CPF Bishan building is here, also got community club. Besides the MRT station, you also have the big Bishan bus interchange, so that should be very convenient. In terms of school options, as you can see, there are quite a lot of school options at different level: secondary school, primary school, junior college, etc. So I am guessing that would be a very important factor for families in consideration when they want to apply to this particular BTO. In terms of the noise level, if we look at this is just like a small road. It's not so big. So I think it should not be too noisy. And then other than that, the area is pretty much already built, so I don't think we need to worry so much about potential construction noises, which is different versus if you apply for a BTO in Mount Pleasant or in Keppel, right? Because those areas are still being transformed, but this one is already pretty much built, so we don't have anything to worry so much about a noise factor. Okay, so what do I think about the project? What I like about it is that it is still within walking distance to the MRT station, even though I think some people would say that it's a little bit far. But I think 650 meters is still okay lah, especially because around the area there are a lot of shops, got malls, supermarket, etc. So it should not feel that long of a walk, in my opinion. And I also appreciate that it is Bishan MRT station, so if you work in the CBD area, it should be an easy commute to work. I also like that there are a lot of amenities within walking distance. You can go to the mall, there are plenty of shops, even public library, or you can even cycle or jog in the Bishan Ang Mo Kio Park nearby. So quite convenient. There are also a lot of good school options for families. And in terms of resale potential and also rental value potential, I think there's no doubt lah. This would definitely be a $1 million resale flat producer in the future. And then if you want to rent out rooms, should be very easy as well. And then if you have a health condition, you would have a kidney dialysis center on the site, so that should be helpful for the family as well. On the other hand, what don't I like about the project? Well, honestly, it's a bit difficult to find the fault for this particular project because it does have a lot of genuine strong points. What I probably could be critical of would be the high entry price. But then again, due to the high comparable resale transaction prices nearby, you definitely cannot compare the prices in Bishan BTO with Fernvale at Sengkang or with Yishun project, right? Definitely this one is not a budget option. And then I also don't like the fact that this project would have a very limited two-room flexi, especially for first-timer singles, because if you do the math, even though the project has around 130 units of two-room flexi, but then 100 of them will be allocated to seniors, only 65% of the balance would be allocated to first-timer singles, which translates about 20 units only. So I don't recommend singles to apply here because the competition rate would be definitely sky high. So don't apply unless you are feeling super lucky. And then speaking about competition, I am guessing this is one of those projects that will be ultra competitive. I am predicting that even 3-room will be oversubscribed in this project. So typically, if a project is slapped with a 10-year MOP, 3-room is on the lower side in terms of application rate. That is the typical scenario, but for this project, because of the location is very appealing, I'm guessing even 3-room would be oversubscribed. I mean, obviously for other flat types, the 2-room flexi and also 4-room, for sure it will be oversubscribed as well. It's just a matter of what is the exact number. Overall, I think this project is a solid choice. Personally, if I'm on the market to apply for a BTO, this would be one of the top contender in my opinion. Let's talk about the keppel BTO. If you are looking for a project that can be resold at the highest price down the line, this might be it. This is like the future pinnacle at Duxton but on steroids. Here we are not talking about $1 million plus, but probably like $2 million plus for a high floor 4-room unit, especially if it's facing the ocean. Considering the highest floor on the blocks here will be between 19 to 46, no wonder that many owners here would either have a great unblocked view either to the sea or at least looking at the city skyline. This project is actually on the mid-range as it offers 870 units of 2-room flexi, 3-room and 4-room flats. For the on-site facility, there will be a preschool here to help parents with young children. To ensure inclusivity, HDB has announced that one of the blocks here is allocated as rental flats. What is special about the project is that because it will kickstart the development of the greater southern waterfront and will form part of the 6,000 HDB flats and 3,000 condos around the area. FYI that there's another project launch in Bukit Merah in October as well. So if you apply for Bukit Merah Town, you can either get this keppel or Red Hill Close BTO depending on your queue number. But stay tuned until the end of the video because I will tell you a trick to ensure that your application is targeted specifically for keppel but not for the other Bukit Merah project. Now, let's talk about the location. Okay, so this is the map that HDB gave. So if we check the comparables in Google Maps, this is it. So the road is not even built yet inside this area because it will still undergo the transformation, but I believe it's somewhere around here. So according to Google Map, it's about 350 meters to Teluk Blangah and about 650 meters to Labrador Park. But then again, both stations are part of the same MRT line, so it doesn't really matter. You probably just take the Teluk Blangah MRT and that would be it. As you can see, this is just an empty land plot right now. There's no amenities here and you would need to travel a little bit. So if you cross the highway, then there will be some eateries and then some shops as well. There's a food center over here and then some shops over there, and then got Alexander Retail Center over here. So there are some amenities, but you just have to travel a little bit more. So if you want more amenities, obviously you can just take the MRT to Harbourfront. It will just be like one stop away. In Harbourfront, of course, there will be more amenities because you have a mall there, and then you have food centers, a lot of shops, so that would be convenient. Because if you think about it, the key selling point of this project is the location, but not because of the mature amenities directly within walking distance. That's not it. It's more about the potential ocean view. As you can see, it's really quite near to the water. And then you also have nature on your doorstep. The Labrador Nature Reserve is here. And then you also have the Bukit Cermin Boardwalk, and Mount Faber is over here. And then of course, obviously, Sentosa is just quite nearby. Unfortunately, in Singapore, short-term rental in residential houses is not allowed, right? You can't just rent out your rooms for like 1 or 2 nights, because if it's allowed, gosh, you can just rent out to tourists because it's so near to the Sentosa Island. But again, it's not allowed, so don't do it. If you do it, you might get caught. Yeah, but Sentosa is just right over here. If we look at the plot, it is next to a highway, so that's watch out. There will be some blocks that will be very exposed to this highway, especially if your queue number is not so good, and then you can only secure like low floor units or mid floor units. Then you would get disturbed quite a lot with this highway, so that's a watch out. So in terms of school options, if I look at the map here, honestly, there aren't many options, isn't it? You have the Blangah Rise Primary School over here, but then if we zoom out, there aren't many options nearby. So that is something to take note of, especially if you are a family with young children. You do have to realistically think, where do you want to send the kids to school? There are schools, but then it's just far away. But then again, of course, it can still be resolved with school buses, or you take them there. So it's not that it doesn't have any solution. So limited school options, but then it's still doable. Okay, so what do I like about the project? Without a doubt, this project definitely has an extremely high resale value in the future, especially if you manage to secure high floor units that face the ocean directly. I feel like this project is kind of similar to Pinnacle at Duxton, where it is being set up for such a success that $1 million resale flats here is almost guaranteed in the future, and not only going to be an outlier, but it would be the norm here, especially for bigger flats. Yeah, not talking about 2-room flexi, but I'm talking about 4 rooms or even 3 room. I think can still be sold above $1 million in the future. The area itself feels kind of premium because it is near the waterfront. For day-to-day convenience, I do like that this development will be close to 2 MRT stations, so that's good. If you enjoy an active lifestyle, this place is near the Bukit Cermin Boardwalk, where you can jog to the ocean, so that's also good. This development also will have quite a lot of 2-room flexi, so that would be a good news, especially for seniors and also first-timer singles. On the other hand, of course, there are some downside. Given the area is still on its very early stage of transformation, you do have to expect that there will be quite a lot of construction dust and noise for several years down the line from the surrounding areas. And then while the area is still being transformed, you would also have lack of amenities, so you need to travel for amenities. So that's the reality of this place. But there is one thing that I think would not be resolved with the transformation, which is the lack of school options for families, especially if you look at the map, right? There's not many primary school options within the 2-kilometer radius. It will be quite far. So that is the reality that you have to face. I'm not sure whether the government will build a primary school in the area. Let me know in the comment section down below if you know anything about this. And then the next watch out is that this project is actually located next to a highway, so certain blocks will be very prone to noise and dust, especially if you can only get low to mid floor. The entry price for this project is also on the higher side because I believe that other than looking at the high comparables around the area, the government is also considering what is the potential of the resale value down the line, right? So the entry price is definitely on the higher side. And of course, it's never fun to get slapped with 10-year MOP and then very strict restrictions in terms of not being able to rent out the whole flat even after MOP, etc. And don't forget that your future resale buyers will also be subjected to income ceiling, which does limit the potential resale value down the line, even though realistically there will always be some family with plenty of cash, right? Either they inherited it or they recently sold their landed house or something. There will always be somebody with plenty of cash, in my opinion, but it does limit your potential buyers. Now, let's talk about the ballot risk because as I mentioned, there are two projects in Bukit Merah for October. So, Keppel or Berlayar Creek BTO and the other one which is Red Hill Close BTO. The other project is actually not bad. It's probably even more convenient for day-to-day life. But if you are so adamant that you just strictly want a Keppel only, there's actually one trick that you can do, which is to apply for 3-room flat. Why? Because if we look at the lineup, the other project Red Hill Close, they will offer 2-room flexi and 4-room, while this Keppel Berlayar Creek BTO is offering 2-room flexi, 3-room and 4-room flats. So, meaning that if you apply for 3-room Bukit Merah, then for sure you are only targeting to ballot just for Keppel. When this video is being recorded, there are already 3-room flats in Singapore that are being sold above $900,000. So if we are thinking about this Keppel Berlayar Creek BTO, let's say 15 years down the line, I'm pretty sure you will be able to get above $1 million for 3-room flat here as long as it's on high floors and have good facing. So if you are approaching this from a very pragmatic approach, 3-room might be a potential, especially if you don't require such a big flat and then you just want to focus to get a unit at Keppel here, and then after MOP you flip it and then you move on with your life. 3-room might be a choice because then you don't have to worry about the risk of having to pick Red Hill Close if your queue number is not so good. In summary, I think this project is a good option, especially for those who see BTO as a stepping stone in their property journey, because if you are lucky enough to get the right unit, you are in a position to profit a lot. In terms of targeted audience, somehow I feel that this project would be more suitable for singles or couples without kids. For families, I think the lack of nearby school options is going to be a real challenge. For seniors, well, it depends on your health condition. Because if you live here, the reality is you do have to travel a bit to get amenities and to go to health facilities. So all in all, I predict this project will be popular, but I don't think it will get the highest application rate among the October BTO lineup. Why? Because I think there will be some applicants who thinks like me and prioritize more on the day-to-day life conveniences, especially if you're talking about the long haul, right? 10 years, 15 years, that's not a short time at all. I think Bishan BTO would actually get a higher application rate versus this project. Let's talk about the Red Hill Close BTO at Bukit Merah. What most people know about the October BTO is the flashy Keppel BTO that will give you a chance to own an ocean-facing BTO in such a premium area that is typically reserved for high-end condos. But not many people realize just yet that when you ballot for Bukit Merah town, there is a risk that you might get the other sibling, which is the Red Hill Close BTO. You see, based on the current HDB rule, you can only apply for one town and one flat type only. You cannot pick the project at the beginning. You can only do so if you are lucky enough to get a queue number. And even that, it will depend on what project and units are still available when you are invited to pick a flat. So, when you apply for Bukit Merah in October, you can either get Keppel or Red Hill Close. Hence, I think it's good to know more about this project a little bit more. So, Red Hill Close is a mega project that will host 1,020 units of 2-room flexi and 4-room flats. In fact, 410 of it would be 2-room flexi. So, this is a good news for seniors and first-timer singles. In terms of on-site facilities, there will be a preschool here, but that's not a big problem because the area itself is very mature, so you have a lot of amenities surrounding you. In terms of classification, given that this project is located in Bukit Merah town, it is still within walking distance to Red Hill MRT station, and the fact that the two recent Bukit Merah were classified as prime just in the previous release. I'm guessing that this Red Hill Close most likely will be categorized as prime project as well, which means it will be subjected to 10-year MOP and very strict restrictions in terms of you won't be able to ever rent out the whole flat even after MOP. You have income ceiling for the future potential resale buyers, etc. But yeah, at this point in time, that's just the reality of applying for BTO, isn't it? Now, let's talk about the location. So this is the map that HDB gave. So if we look in Google Maps, I think this is the comparable location. So it's this giant land plot. So initially, I thought they would build a BTO here completely. That's why it can fit over 1,000 flats. But apparently, upon closer look, when comparing the marking here, it's not even going to be the full land plot here. It seems like the BTO of Red Hill Close will only use some of this plot, but not the whole thing. So only on the bottom part. So it seems like they are saving the balanced land, which is on the top, probably for future BTO. So that's interesting. So the location of this land plot is a little bit on the quieter side of Bukit Merah, I would say, because this part and this part is just like a small road. Only this one, Jalan Bukit Merah, is busier, so it will be noisier. But other than that, this is more like a quieter side of Bukit Merah, facing another HDB complex on this side. Now, you might be wondering where is the nearest MRT station. So it's just over here, Red Hill. So I checked using Google Maps before, and it's around 650 meters to Red Hill MRT station. So I think it's definitely still walkable. It's not that far in my opinion. In terms of amenities, you have the Red Hill Market just over here, and there's also some hawker centers. And of course, near the Red Hill MRT station itself, you have a lot of small shops, clinics, etc. There are actually quite a lot of eateries around here as well, around the Jalan Bukit Merah, and also got some clinics, got some McDonald's. So there are plenty of amenities definitely around the area. So if I zoomed in a little bit, you see Bukit Merah Town Center is over here, and then you have bunch of cafes, shops, TCM, etc. So definitely quite a lot of amenities. If you like to exercise, there's a gym over here. It is also equipped with swimming pool, is it? I'm not so sure whether it's part of the gym, honestly. But then we also have Active SG just around here. So it is within walking distance from this Red Hill Close BTO. If you are religious, there's a temple over here, and then there's a mosque over here. So it's not that far. And then I believe there are some churches as well. But then I think, as far as I know, the churches is a bit far, which is around this area. So probably you would need to take a bus to go to that church. For parents, there are several options to send your kids to school. You have the Gan Eng Seng Primary School here. You have the Bukit Merah Secondary School there. So other than the two schools I've mentioned, there's another primary school over here, another school over here again. So there are some options. So you also have the Queenstown Secondary School and also Crescent Girls School. Now, if you don't want to walk all over to Red Hill MRT station, if you see the Jalan Bukit Merah is actually a main road. So you can also take buses here. As you can see, there are quite a lot of bus stops over here. So I think it will be easy for you to commute. In terms of the view, realistically, because it is a mature town, we don't see much of empty land plots, right? So most likely you will just face another tower, or you will face another building. So for example, these are just another HDB complex. I think these are also high-rise buildings. The only facing that I think can have some sort of unblocked view, especially for high floors, probably would be the one facing the Gan Eng Seng Primary School. So over here, probably you'll have some unblocked views if you have like high floor units. For those of you who are driving, the expressway is just over here. But as you can see from the map, the land plot itself is not directly next to the expressway. So Hopefully, it would not be so noisy, especially at night. Overall, I think the location is actually quite good. As long as you don't expect any ocean view or something like that, like you might get at Keppel BTO. But I think overall, this is actually a solid option in my opinion, especially if you have a family and you prefer to have convenience for day-to-day activities. So overall, what do I think about this project? Honestly, I was surprised that HDB released this spot, given that back in July, we just had two Bukit Merah BTO, and then in October, Keppel is already scheduled to be as part of the lineup, which is technically Bukit Merah as well. So I am surprised that HDB released another Bukit Merah location again. At first, when I saw the lineup, this particular BTO did feel like a trap at the beginning, because if somebody bid for Bukit Merah, then they could either get Keppel or Red Hill Close depending on their queue number, of course. But then upon closer look, to me, this is not exactly a trap, but it's just another option. Objectively, I think Red Hill Close is actually more sustainable for families because of its proximity to schools as well as amenities, and it's also more convenient for day-to-day life in my opinion, even though yes, you would not see ocean every day, but this is more convenient in my opinion. So what do I like about the project? I do appreciate that you can still walk to MRT station, even though admittedly, it's a bit of a mid-distance. 650 meters is not that close, but I think it's still doable. I also appreciate that it has mature amenities, even though on site it will only have a preschool, but then surrounding the area, you have Red Hill Market and Food Center, you have a lot of shops, you have Active SG, swimming pool and gym, and then overall, the area feels mature. And then you also have several school options, so that's good for families. In terms of resale and rental possibilities, I have no doubt. I think it will be very competitive, especially because surrounding the land plot are actually like older HDBs. So definitely you have a higher edge if one day you want to resell the flat or you want to rent out rooms. I think it's very much doable. And I also appreciate the fact that it has a lot of two-room flexi supply, which I believe would be very helpful, especially for seniors as well as first-timer singles. So I think that's good. On the other hand, what don't I like about the project? Well, the entry price is on the higher side, of course, compared to like other project in this October BTO launch, right? We cannot compare it with Yishun or cannot compare it with Sengkang. So it's definitely not a budget option. And then, of course, I also don't like the fact that this project will get slapped with the 10-year MOP and very strict restrictions. That's not fun in any way. Another cons would probably be high competition, because I am anticipating many people would apply for Bukit Merah town predominantly because Keppel BTO is being offered, but then it also has a spillover to the application rate for this project as well, right? Because it's located in the same town. So expect the competition to be on a higher side. The application rate would definitely be higher versus if there's no Keppel at all. Because I think if in Bukit Merah town, there's only this Red Hill Close BTO and then there's no Keppel at all, I think the application rate would probably be lower, maybe somewhere around 2 point something, so similar with Alexandra Vista and Alexandra Peaks that were launched back in July. But I think overall, objectively, personally, I think this is a solid option. Let's talk about the Ang Mo Kio BTO. This is the biggest project offered in October with over 1,400 units of 2-room flexi, 3-room and 4-room flats. And on the premise, there will be a preschool, an eating house, a supermarket, and several shops. Initially, I was very excited when I saw Ang Mo Kio as one of the lineup for October 2025, but then apparently this one is a little bit far from MRT station, so we will deep dive into that when we are discussing about the location. But then again, even though you will need to rely on feeder buses, Ang Mo Kio is still a mature town, so you have quite a lot of amenities surrounding the project as long as you want to just make a little bit of effort. In terms of project classification, I'm guessing this project will be categorized as a plus. Why? because it is located in a mature town, but it is objectively quite far from MRT station. But then again, I guess this also explains why this particular project have such a great on-site facilities. It will have supermarket, hawker center, shops, etc. Seems like HDB also acknowledged that the location is a little bit remote. Now let's talk about the location. Okay, so this is the map that HDB gave. So if we look in Google Maps, I think this is the land plot which is close to ITE. Initially, I thought the land plot would be this whole big patch. That's why it can accommodate over 1,400 units. But then apparently not. Upon closer look, the land plot is just this part, which means that if you see this, there are actually quite a lot of room to grow. So I suspect in the future, there will be other BTOs, probably condos as well to be built here. So the area itself is indeed surrounded by schools. So you have ITE here, you have Anderson Secondary School here, and then you have SIT here, Nanyang Polytechnic is here, so quite a lot of schools. If you are wondering where is the nearest MRT station, it's Yio Chu Kang, and according to Google Map, this is about 1.1 kilometer. So probably on the map it doesn't look that far, but it's quite far. I think you would need to take a bus to go there. If you are wondering where is Ang Mo Kio, so Ang Mo Kio is over here. So it's even further away, but it is located somewhere between Yio Chu Kang and Ang Mo Kio. But then to either location, you would need to take a bus or private vehicle. I went ahead and checked like how many bus actually pass this road, because indeed we cannot deny that the location is quite remote, right? And apparently there are at least 4 to 5 buses that seems to be going through this passage. So I think even though the location is a little bit far from MRT station, hopefully if there are quite a lot of bus choices, hopefully your waiting time would not be so long lah. In terms of amenities, as mentioned, the on-site facilities will include an eating house, a supermarket, several shops, etc. But then if you want to eat, you can alternatively go to the ITE college as well, because there are some eateries there. And then around these HDB blocks, on the ground floor, usually there are many small shops as well, right? Some of them are eateries as well. So you can go there. If you like to exercise, there's an active SG gym here and also swimming pool, but it's again nearer to Yio Chu Kang area. Got Yio Chu Kang Stadium there as well. Alternatively, you also have the Chengsan Market here and food center. Of course, no need to mention there are plenty of amenities around the Ang Mo Kio area, so that's good. So in terms of schooling options, across the street there will be Anderson Secondary School, and then other than that there are other schools as well. This one is a primary school. This one is, as we mentioned, ITE College, and then also got Anderson Serangoon Junior College, Nanyang Polytechnic, etc. So there are quite a lot of schools nearby. You have this Mayflower Primary School, Anderson Primary School, etc. So there are quite a lot of schools, so it's suitable for families. Regarding expressway, there is an expressway here, but then again, the BTO would be located here. So it's actually still quite a distance, so I don't think you would be too bothered by the central expressway here. What is probably more troublesome is the construction noises once this area is starting to be built. So I don't know how many years would they need to complete the transformation of this area, so that's a big watch out. Okay, so what do I like about the project? I love that this project has great on-site facilities, because not every project would have a supermarket, an eating house, several shops, etc. And I also like the fact that this is a mega project, over 1,400 units, so you should have a lot of resale transaction prices in the future, which you can use as benchmark, and typically this can help to get a better price when you try to sell your flat after MOP. There is also plenty of 2-room flexi supply for seniors and first-timer singles, so hopefully that could help this particular segment of the population. And I also like, in general, Ang Mo Kio has a lot of school options at various levels, so this is going to be quite sustainable for families. And of course, Ang Mo Kio being a mature town, it actually has a lot of amenities, even though you probably would need to take a bus ride or ride a bicycle or something, but at least it's a mature town. You are not like in the middle of nowhere. Another benefit that I can see from this project is that this might end up to be one of those projects that has a moderate level of competition level. Why do I say that? Well, because even though it's in a mature town, but then the location is a little bit remote, you would need to rely on buses and not everybody likes that. This project could ended up having low to moderate competition, which will be great news for those who have been struggling to try to secure a flat. Okay, but on the other side, indeed, we cannot escape the downside, which is it is objectively far from MRT station. Yes, you can take a bus, but then realistically, right, bus sometimes you wait for 2 minutes, sometimes you wait for 10 minutes plus. It's quite unpredictable. Alternatively, of course, you can always have a private vehicle, but then understandably, it's not ideal. Another downside that I initially wasn't aware of is that this particular area is actually still undergoing a transformation. So if you see on the map, actually there are some roads that are not even built yet in this area, and seems like in the future there will still be other BTOs, probably condos, I don't know, but there are still a lot of unoccupied land plot, which means that you might need to deal with construction noises and also dust for several years to come. And of course, having this project to have 10-year MOP is a little bit harsh, if I may say so, because the area is still undergoing transformation. It's far from MRT station. It is in a mature town, but then again, yeah, I personally feel that it would be making better sense if this project is categorized as a standard, but yeah, realistically, it's not. So in summary, I think it is quite rare to have a mega project in a mature town. So this is definitely one of those chances that you can consider, especially if you have been struggling to secure a BTO after several attempts. This project also has great on-site facilities, which will be helpful for your day-to-day activities. If you are okay to rely on feeder buses or have your own private vehicle, this BTO definitely can be one of your options. Historically, Ang Mo Kio application rate can be hit or miss depending on proximity to MRT station. So like what I mentioned before, this project could end up being one of those projects that has low to moderate level of competition, especially for those looking for two-room flexi. You should take a look at this project even closer, because this is one of those projects that has a lot of two-room flexi supplies, around 430, so that's actually quite generous. Overall, among the BTO lineup for October, I would put this project probably somewhere in the middle. It's not my favorite, but it's not the worst either. That's how I'm going to put it. But again, at the end of the day, it's up to you, depending on your family situation, financial situation, etc. Let's talk about Bedok BTO. The land plot is located at Chee Drive and will have 850 units of 2-room flexi, 3-room, 4-room, 5-room, and even 3-gen flats. Even though the flat type offered here is very diverse, interestingly, in terms of on-site facilities, it would just have a preschool. In terms of classification, because this project is located in a mature town but far away from MRT station, I'm guessing that this project will be categorized as a plus. When I read online, there are some people who predicted that this project will get a standard instead. So we'll see how it goes, because at this point in time, we can only speculate, right? Now let's talk about the location. Okay, so this is the map that HDB gave, and if we check on Google Maps, I believe that this is the land plot. So it will be just a portion of this giant land plot, so not the whole thing, but only like the upper part. If you are wondering where is the nearest MRT station, well, I had to zoom out because it's quite far. So it's actually between Bedok and Kembangan, but according to Google Map, you would be slightly closer to Bedok. But when I say close, I'm being generous, because it's still about 1.5 kilometers, which means that you would need to rely on feeder buses or private vehicle. In terms of amenities within walking distance, it's kind of limited, because there are some shops and clinics. So for example, you have clinics over here, and then you have HDB complex around here. I'm sure somewhere here got a mini market or supermarket somewhere. And then also here, you have some eateries over over here, which is relatively quite close. It's about 1 or 2 blocks, right? So there are some options, but the reality is you would need to travel by bus to a more populated area like near Bedok MRT station or Kembangan MRT station for more amenities. That's why I'm actually confused why HDB will only build a preschool on the site, but maybe they are planning to have more amenities in future BTO project, because if you look at this map, right, as I mentioned, this Bedok BTO will only use the upper portion of this giant land plot, and then the vast majority is still empty. So most likely this will be future BTO sites as well. And then the land plot opposite it actually still empty as well. So it seems like this area is still under development. So maybe in the future there will be more facilities in future project sites. But then as an implication of that, do heads up that you might be disturbed by construction noise and dust for several years to come if indeed the area surrounding the plot will be eventually developed. So that's a watch out. Okay, now let's talk about schooling options. In terms of schooling options, I had to zoom out a little bit because I don't see any primary or secondary school within walking distance. But there are some, but quite far away. So you would need to either take bus or private vehicle or maybe school bus. So here you have the Teluk Kurau Primary School, and then you also have the Fengshan Primary School here. So, and then Damai Primary School is over here. So there are some options, but then objectively, it's kind of limited. Okay, so what do I like about this project? Well, I appreciate that this project has various flat types from 2-room flexi, 3-room, 4-room, 5-room, and even 3-gen. I also appreciate that this land plot is surrounded by low-rise buildings, so if you manage to get mid to high floor units, then you will be able to have unblocked view of the city landscape. I'm guessing that this project would get low to moderate competition level, so that's actually a good news for those who have been struggling to secure a BTO flat in a mature town. If you have your own private vehicle, it will be a short drive to central area or to Changi area. For parents, this location still have some school options even though it's limited, but at least it's not equal to 0. Okay, on the other hand, what are the downsides of this project that I'm seeing? I think first of all, we cannot run from the fact that this location is just far from any MRT station, whether right now or even in the future. You would just need to rely on feeder bus or private vehicle if you would like to search for amenities or probably commute to work or school. And unfortunately, there's not many amenities on site. I'm actually quite surprised that given the remote location of this land plot, they are only planning to have a preschool, so not even like a mini market or shops or anything like that. It's just a preschool, which is kind of surprising. My guess is that there's already an existing supermarket somewhere along the nearby HDB complex, so you just need to go there for amenities. And because of the remote location and also limited amenities, it will have some impact on resale and rental potential. So that's a watch out if you are planning to buy this as a stepping stone for your property journey. This would be a bit tough. Other than that, I'm also struggling with the high entry price. I understand that Bedok being a mature town, the nearby resale transaction tends to be on the higher side. But then again, this place is a little bit difficult to justify the price. So in summary, what do I think about this project? I think it looks good at a glance, but then when we double click, there's a lot of downsides. Even though it is located in a mature town, but the location is kinda in a hidden corner with very limited transport options, combined with the lack of amenities, lack of schooling options, and high entry price because of the high comparables. I am predicting that this project would be on the lower side in terms of application rate, and a sizable portion might ended up being in the future SBF. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. Let's talk about Sengkang BTO. This BTO is located at Fernvale Street, where it will have 1,030 units of community care apartment, 2-room flexi, 4-room, and 5-room flats. This one is considered a mega project because it has more than 1,000 units. In terms of on-site facilities, This BTO only has a preschool. However, not to worry because there are some amenities surrounding the project. Without a doubt, I think this project will be classified as standard. And I do believe that this will be one of the budget options in the October 2025 BTO lineup. Now let's talk about the location. Okay, so this is the map that HDB gave, and then as we can see, Kupang LRT station is just nearby, which is about 500 meters according to Google Maps, so definitely within walking distance. If we check on the Google Map, this is the corresponding plot, which is right over here, so definitely quite near to the Kupang LRT station. And then nearby, there's also a Shengshong supermarket, so even though the on-site facility for this BTO is only a preschool, but no worries because you have a supermarket just nearby within walking distance. If you like outdoor activity, the Sengkang Riverside Park is just over here. So it would be good for you to maybe have a jogging in the morning or to cycle or maybe take your dog for a walk. For more amenities, if we zoom out, actually Seletar Mall is probably a short bus ride away, or you can also take the LRT. If you want more food options, Jalan Kayu is also nearby. You can just take the LRT to Tanggam Station, so which is like one stop away, so it's quite close. Then you can find more eateries alongside Jalan Kayu. And of course, for more amenities, you can take the LRT to Sengkang Station, which is about 3 stops, where you can find a big mall, more amenities. And if you need healthcare support, Sengkang General Hospital is also quite close, which is about 2 LRT stops away because I think the nearest one is Changlim Station. And also if you want to go for a swim or you want to play soccer or something, Sengkang Active SG Sports Center is just nearby. Think you can just take a short bus ride away or maybe just cycle there. In terms of school options, as you can see in this map, there are quite a lot of primary and secondary school within the 2-kilometer radius. So I wouldn't be worried about where to put my kids to school. As you can see, even across the street, there's a primary school nearby. There are other school options around the area, so that's good. This is what I personally like about Sengkang area because even though it is admittedly very far from city center if you work there, however, objectively, if you stay at home, there are quite a lot of facilities and amenities for your family to live a simple life. Maybe you don't get a lot of nightlife, obviously, but at least like for a simple lifestyle, this is actually more than enough in my opinion. I do have to point out that this land plot is immediately going to face an expressway over here. So if you manage to get a queue number, just try to make sure that you don't pick a block that is directly facing the expressway because it's going to be quite noisy and dusty as well. And then another watch out is the land plot next to it is where another BTO is being built. So, and then if you notice, there this land plot next to it is also still empty. I think sooner or later this will be another residential building. So do expect that there will be some construction noises in the future. Even the plot like opposite it seems like they are going to build something later on. I know that it's quite far, but probably you can still hear the noises. But I think overall, this is still a solid budget option if you don't mind living far away from the city center. Okay, so what do I like about the project? I love that it is within walking distance to an LRT station. So even though it's LRT, but it's still a train station, right? So you can commute easily to work or to school, etc. The price is also relatively affordable in the October BTO lineup, so it's considered budget friendly. And I also appreciate that there are a lot of school options which will be very helpful for families and also can be a selling point when it's time for you to sell the flat later on. Even though the BTO project location is far away from city center, but it does have good amenities surrounding the area. If you like an active lifestyle, as mentioned, this is also near Sengkang Riverside Park and also Active SG Sports Complex, so that's good. There are also amenities like several malls, even though you will need a bus ride or a train ride, but it's still relatively nearby. For seniors, you'll be happy to know that this project is senior friendly because it has 200 units of CCA. health, and also community services. And I also appreciate that this project only has a 5-year MOP, because I think nowadays it's quite rare to get a standard classification and nearby train station. Hopefully, HDB moving forward will continue to just keep everything standard if it's only near an LRT station. So on the other hand, what don't I like about this project? Well, if you have an allergy towards LRT, then this project might not be for you, because that's the reality, right? You either need to take a bus ride to Sengkang MRT station, or you take the LRT to Sengkang MRT. And having been in the area before in the past, Sengkang MRT station honestly is not the most comfortable station if you want to switch from LRT to MRT, vice versa, especially if you have a stroller or if you have a wheelchair. So please take note if, let's say, you or maybe your family member required a special arrangement, because the lift queue is always very long. I mean, even compared to Punggol MRT station, I think you have to experience it yourself, then you know what I'm talking about. If you are planning to apply for this BTO, and then you either have a baby on a stroller or you have elderly family member on a wheelchair, before you apply for this project, seriously, go to Sengkang MRT station and then take the LRT to Kupang on a peak hour during weekdays. You experience it by yourself, then you know what I'm talking about. And then another downside would be potential construction noise and dust from surrounding areas. I think when I say potential, I'm just being very nice lah, because sooner or later, given the empty land plot surrounding the area, sooner or later it will be developed. So that is something that you need to take into consideration. And then some blocks of this development will face the expressway, so that is also something that you need to manage. Another thing that I don't like about this project is that I don't understand why they only allocate 100 units of two-room flexi when HDB knows at the same time seniors needs to be allocated 40% of two-room flexi, or at least 100 units. If we play by that rule, then this would mean that two-room flexi in this particular project, every single one of them will be allocated for seniors. There will be none allocated for singles, which sucks. In summary, I think this project is a textbook budget BTO. Why do I say that? Because it has an affordable entry price, it is close to transport node, there are a lot of schools nearby. However, it is far away from city center. I think personally, this is a solid option if you are looking for a budget-friendly BTO in the October lineup, especially if you have a family. Obviously, you cannot expect to have a high profit if you do sell this apartment after MOP. You can't expect to be a millionaire if you buy this BTO. But I think if you are just looking for a house that you can start your property journey with, I think this is actually a good option. Let's talk about the Jurong East BTO. This project will have 620 units of 2-room flexi, 3-room, 4-room, 5-room, and 3-gen, which is very surprising considering the size of the land plot is actually not that big, but they still try to fit in so many different flat types. In terms of the on-site facilities, there will be a preschool and a residence network center. If you look at the map, there will be an MRT station in near future, which is Pandan Reservoir, which will be about 400 meters away, so definitely within walking distance. And looking at the timeline, it seems like when the PTO is completed, the Pandan Reservoir MRT station should be ready to be used as well, so that is going to be very convenient. In terms of classification, I'm guessing that this project will be categorized as a standard, so it should just have the 5-year MOP as well as the normal restrictions. If I'm right about the classification, then there's a possibility that this project will actually be the dark horse of October 2025 BTO lineup, because I can guess there will be many people who want to apply to this BTO, especially because it will be so close to an MRT station, and Pandan Reservoir MRT station will just be about 2 stops away from Jurong East. So that will be very appealing. On top of that, if you look at the map, the land plot is literally facing the Pandan Reservoir. So as you can imagine, there will be many flats who will be having an unblocked view towards the waterfront. Not only for those at high floors, but also even low and mid-level floors will have this unblocked water view as long as you pick the right block. Now let's talk about the location. So this is the map that HDB gave. If we check in Google Map, it seems like this is basically the land plot. So as you can see, it's quite big. It is the land plot right opposite the Commonwealth Secondary School. And as you can see, it is directly facing the Pandan Reservoir Park. So as you can imagine, there will be quite a lot of flats that are going to face the waterfront. Not only top level, but also even like low floor and mid floor will have this unblocked view towards this waterfront, which will be very, very exciting. Even though the on-site facilities plan is only a preschool and a residence network, however, not to worry, because actually there are several places where you can get amenities. So as you can see, this is the Teban Marketplace, which is definitely within walking distance. In fact, it's just at the back of the plot, so within walking distance. And then you also have a lot of like small shops and restaurants nearby, some clinics, some ATM and bank branches, so that's very good. Besides Teban Marketplace, if we continue to go to the west side, then there are more amenities. So for example, you have Makan Shop here, you have Penjuru Food Court here, there's a mosque, and then as well as there's a Shangshong supermarket here. So that would be good. And then there is a neighborhood park as well in case you want to exercise or you want to take your dog for a walk. So there are some amenities in the area. If I zoom out, there are quite a lot of business parks around the area, which means that a lot of workers around here, you know, some of them would need some accommodation. So if you want to rent out rooms, or maybe after MOP, if you want to rent out your flat or you want to sell in the future, I think you have a good chance, because I think the demand is definitely there, especially with the proximity to the MRT station. In terms of nearest MRT station, as you can see, actually right now there's none, but there will be a Pandan Reservoir MRT station that will be built in several years' time, which will just line up nicely with the completion time of the BTO. And you will be just 2 stops away from the Jurong East MRT station, where obviously you will have a lot of malls and a lot of amenities around that area. And given how popular Jurong is for people who love the west side, I'm guessing that this project will actually be quite popular, because again, it's going to be really convenient to Jurong East. It's going to be facing the waterfront. So this project could be the hidden gem. In terms of healthcare facilities, there's none within walking distance, but then again, you can just take a bus or take the train nearby Jurong East, because then there's a general hospital around the area. So I think that's the nearest big healthcare facilities that I'm seeing. Nearby the BTO itself, I think I saw like a small clinics here around the Teban Marketplace, but then it's just a small clinic. If you need to go to a hospital, you need to have like a short bus ride away, or you can also take the train. Now let's talk about school options. So as mentioned, the land plot is opposite Commonwealth Secondary School. But then the problem is, even if you zoom out the map, you can't really find a primary school nearby. I mean, there's this Fuhua Primary School, but it's quite far. So this is a watch out for parents if you want to apply for a BTO here. If you currently have young children, or in the future you are planning to have kids, then it might be a little bit challenging to find a primary school nearby the area. But you know, of course, you can always use the school bus. But there's a watch out that in terms of primary school option, it's very, very limited. Okay, so what do I like about the project? I like the fact that it will be within walking distance to an MRT station, and you will only be 2 stops away from Jurong East, which is considered a major hub in the west area. Even though there aren't many on-site facilities, but nearby within walking distance, you can easily find some amenities like hawker center and small shops, small clinics, etc., and also a supermarket, so that will be quite convenient. Given that there are quite a lot of industries and offices around the area, I think it will be very easy to rent out rooms or even sell the flats later on after MOP, or rent out the whole flat after MOP, so that will be very convenient. Another positive thing is that surprisingly, this project has a lot of flat types. So even if, let's say, you want a 3-gen or a 5-room flat, if your budget can hold it, then obviously the options are available here. And last but not least, we cannot underestimate the power of being so near to Pandan Reservoir Park, because it will give quite a lot of units here an unblocked view towards the waterfront, which typically is a very good selling point down the line. Other than that, it will also be very supportive if you like an active lifestyle, because you can easily jog, you can go for a run, you can take your dogs out, or you can just cycle. So I can see why many people will be drawn to this particular project. Now, on the other hand, what are the downsides? I think we cannot escape the fact that for families, it will be very challenging to get your kids to primary school because the school options is very limited. Only Commonwealth Secondary School is nearby, but then beyond that, it's very difficult. Another downside that I'm seeing is because this project is categorized as a standard project, the price is not exactly cheap. So it's somewhere in the middle. So it's not the most expensive, but then it's also not the cheapest one. So yeah, this one, the price is somewhere in the middle. Another watch out is for singles. Please note that this project has very limited two-room flexi options for first-timer singles. In fact, if we do the math, there will only be 26 units that is allocated for first-timer singles. So that will be very, very, very competitive for singles who wants to apply at this project. So in summary, I think this is actually a very good project, especially for those who like the West area and doesn't have young children. Although it is very far from the CBD area, but at least it's near an MRT station and it is only 2 stops away from Jurong East MRT station. The lack of schooling options might be an issue for families, but then strangely at the same time, because there are only 26 slots allocated for first-timer singles, this project is not exactly for singles as well. So personally, I'm a bit confused, like this BTO is actually targeting which audience, I'm not so sure. But seriously, the combination between proximity to MRT station, proximity to Jurong East hub, standard classification, and an unblocked view to Pandan Reservoir Park could be a very good combination. If people realize it, this project could actually be the hidden gem in October 2025 BTO lineup. Let's talk about Chencharu BTO at Yishun. This project will have 810 units of 2-room flexi, 3-room, 4-room, and 5-room flat. And in terms of facilities on site, there will be a preschool, but unfortunately that's it. I'm guessing that this project only has a preschool on site because the other BTO nearby will already be equipped with more amenities such as supermarket, an eating house, etc. If you are looking for a budget option in the October 2025 BTO lineup, I believe this would be one of them. And without a doubt, this project will be classified as a standard project, which means that it will only have the 5-year MOP and all of the standard restrictions that we are familiar with. If you recall, in the earlier BTO launches, there are also other Chencharu projects, and this is just another continuation of the transformation of Chencharu area. As the area is still developing, you should be mentally prepared with construction dust and noises from the surrounding areas. Now, let's talk about the location. Okay, so this is the map that HDB gave, and this is pretty much the location. As you can see, it's relatively nearby to the Khatib MRT station. According to Google Map, it's about 650 meters. So it's a little bit difficult to decide because the area is still under development. So the roads are not fully built yet. We don't know for sure. Even though the on-site facility is only a preschool, but if we see on the map, nearby there will be a proposed commercial and residential integrated development with bus interchange and hawker center. So that should be good to accommodate the residents here. Other than that, there are actually several other BTOs that were launched earlier, just only 1 or 2 years differences, where it will have more amenities as well. And compared with those other BTOs, actually this one that is being launched in October is already quite close to the MRT station compared to the other several projects earlier. Now, another thing that I want you to note from the map is that Sembawang Airbase is basically over here. I know that some people commented in this channel that Sembawang Airbase is not so noisy, but just take note, it's actually quite close. I don't know how noisy would it be, but I'm guessing there will be some noises from the airbase. So it depends on your tolerance level as well. Okay, now if we look at the Google map, basically this would be the location of the upcoming Chencharu BTO in October. So as you can see, It's quite close to the Khatib MRT station, especially if you can like walk across the complex here, so that should be closer. As you can see, the whole area is still being transformed, so you have to be mentally prepared with construction and also dust for several years to come. Now, in terms of amenities, actually near Khatib MRT station, there are some shops, of course, and then if you want some supermarket, Shengshong is over here. So I think it's still within walking distance. You also have NTUC Fair Price, so there are several options. In terms of healthcare facility, as you can see here, there's a polyclinic, Khatib Polyclinic. In terms of distance, it's actually still quite near, so that should be convenient, especially for young families who still have babies that needs vaccination regularly. And still about healthcare facilities, if let's say Khatib Polyclinic is not sufficient with what you need, actually, if we look at this map, Yishun Community Hospital and also Kotek Puat Hospital is also relatively nearby. It's like a short bus ride away. If you want more amenities, of course, you can always take the MRT or bus and venture out to Yishun MRT area, where you will be able to find the North Point City Mall. If you like active lifestyle, Active SG Gym and Swimming Pool is over here. So I think you can take a short bus ride there. It's about 2 or 3 stops, so still relatively near. Regarding school options, clearly there are plenty of school options nearby. There are even 2 within walking distance. There are more within 2-kilometer radius, and the school is also available at different level, not only primary and secondary school, but also like junior college. You even have like special needs school. So I think this will be very convenient for families. Okay, so what do I like about this project? I like that this project seems to be still within walking distance to the MRT station. In fact, if we look at the map, it seems like this particular BTO would be closer to Khatib MRT station versus other BTO at Chencharu that were launched in past launches. I also appreciate that this is a budget-friendly option, so this would be good for families with limited budget. And I also like that this project has a good amount of 2-room flexi supply, which will be very helpful for seniors and also singles. Another thing that I like is that this project offers different flat types from 2-room flexi, 3-room, 4-room, and 5-room. So I think that's good for different applicants with different needs. The amount of schools nearby is also good for families, because then you would not be too worried about where to send your kids to school. And of course, having this BTO to be classified as a standard project makes it very easy for you to move on once you have hit the MOP. And on the other hand, what don't I like about this project? Well, I think ballot risk is something that you need to consider, because in October 2025 BTO launch, there are 2 projects in Yishun town. That means if you apply and you manage to get a queue number, you could either get a unit here or the other BTO project at Yishun Ring Road, which unfortunately the other project is further away from MRT station. Another thing to take note of is because the area is still under development, you cannot deny that there are a lot of construction dust and noise in the area for the time being, which also translate to the lack of amenities initially. Because Sembawang Air Base is relatively nearby, so you might hear some noise pollution from there as well. Another thing to note is because the HDB have launched several projects at Chencharu in the past several years. So when it's time for this project to be resold in the resale market, there will be quite a lot of competition, especially because the BTO will hit MOP pretty much back to back, so the age is pretty similar. So you will have a lot of competition when you want to resell the unit or when you want to rent out either rooms or the whole flat later on after MOP. In summary, I think this project is actually overall a good option if you like the Yishun area and you would like a BTO that is relatively near to the MRT station. Even though the north-south line is notorious for being very packed during peak hours, but at least you are going to have an easy commute, especially if you are working in the CBD area. And proximity to MRT station also translate to the easiness when it's time for you to sell this unit later on after MOP, or if you want to rent out rooms or rent out the whole flat later on. And for families, having a good amount of school options is also very convenient. So overall, this is actually quite a good option, especially if you have a limited budget and prefers to stay in Yishun area. Let's talk about the Yishun BTO. So in October 2025 BTO lineup, there are actually two Yishun projects, one at Chencharu and then this other one which is nestled between Yishun Ring Road and Yishun Street 31. This project is a little bit on the smaller side with 560 units of 2-room flexi and 4-room flats. In terms of on-site facility, this project will have a preschool and a senior care center. Without a doubt, this project will be one of the more affordable options in the bunch and will be categorized as a standard flat with a 5-year MOP and the typical restrictions that we are familiar with. Now let's talk about the location. So this is the map that HDB gave, and if we look at the corresponding Google map, this is the site which is basically between Yishun Ring Road and Yishun Street 31. As you can see, the surrounding area is already fully developed, so I think if you live here, you don't have to worry so much about ongoing construction noise because, again, the area is already pretty well developed. If you are wondering where is the nearest MRT station, well, unfortunately, I have to zoom out. The nearest MRT station is Yishun, but then it is about 1.5 kilometers away according to Google Maps, so definitely you would need to take a feeder bus to get there. In terms of amenities, there are several malls around the area, but again, it's not within walking distance. So as you can see here, you have Junction 9, and then North Point City is at Yishun, so that is also providing a lot of amenities, but again, not within walking distance. In terms of healthcare facilities, Yishun Polyclinic is around the area. You can just take a short bus ride there, as well as the Nisun East Community Club is also there. If you have kids, there's this free water park called Oasis Water Park at Nisun East. So I've actually been there before. It's quite nice for your kids. It's just the floor is a bit slippery, but then otherwise it's actually nice to spend time with family there. Besides the Yishun Polyclinic that I've mentioned earlier, there are actually also other hospital, which is this one. So again, it's a short bus ride away. If you like outdoor activities, Yishun Park is over here, which is quite big. Yishun Pond also here, and then there's this Khatib Bongso Park connector, which means that you would have some facilities if you would like to go for a morning run or take your dog for a walk. But unfortunately, again, it's a bit far. It's not within walking distance. Although Yishun Park is a little bit far, but this Khatib Bongsu Park connector is more within walking distance to the land plot, so that could also be an alternative if you want to spend your mornings. In terms of school option, as you can see on the map, there are quite a lot of primary and secondary schools nearby. So definitely if you have a family, you don't have to worry so much about school options because there are just quite a lot of them within the area. So what do I like about this project? Well, this is definitely one of the budget-friendly option in the October 25 BTO launch. I also appreciate that for families, there are a lot of school options nearby. In terms of amenities, even though there's not much within walking distance, but you can take a bus ride either to Junction 9 or to North Point City Mall. There are also several attractions that are family-friendly nearby. For example, the Nisun East Free Water Park, the Khatib Bongsu Park Connector, etc. For singles, you definitely should consider this project because it has quite a lot of 2-room flexi supply. I also like the fact that the surrounding area is fully developed, so you don't really have to worry about a lot of construction noises in this place. And of course, it's good to know that this project will be classified as a standard BTO with just the typical 5-year MOP and typical restrictions. But then on the other hand, what are the downsides of this project? I think proximity to MRT station is indeed a problem. I mean, 1.5 kilometers away is not really within walking distance, even if you feel energetic. Because at the end of the day, like if you want to commute to work and then you have to walk that far, probably what would be more realistic if you don't want to take the bus, probably like ride a bicycle or something, but then it's still far away. And because of its distance to the MRT station, unfortunately, it will have an impact on the resale potential and also the rentability potential. So that is something that you need to think about, especially if you want to rent out rooms or rent out the whole flat after MOP, or thinking to flip this flat after MOP. The potential profitability is very limited. Another downside is the ballot risk, because there are two projects for Yishun in the upcoming October 25 BTO. So you could either get Chencharu or this one, depending on your queue number. So that is something that you need to think about. All in all, in summary, I think between the two Yishun BTO projects, the surrounding of this particular project is actually more mature, because there are more amenities, even though they are not within walking distance and you need to take a bus to go there. Singles in particular should really consider this particular BTO, because there are quite a lot of two-room flexi supply, and I am anticipating the application rate for this project would be low. That would be my guess. So overall, this is a budget option for sure, but would I personally apply to this project? No, because in October there are plenty of better choices in my opinion, but that's just my opinion. To get exclusive contents and support my work, click the join button to be part of the online family. Your support means a lot to keep us independent. Don't forget to join the membership, and I'll see you on my next video. Bye bye!